Hello, my name is Victoria Flatt, and I am a transsexual. I am a two-spirited person. I am a 60 scoop survivor. My pronouns are she and her. Um, I just wanted to jump on here and uh, share a little bit about my life and my story and my journey that got me to this point so far. Um, I am currently in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and I am enjoying it so far. I came here October 16th of this year, 2022. First time here, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the energy here. I love the people that are so open and accepting. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a very beautiful experience to be here on the West Coast for the very first time. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I am First Nations, and I am from Peguis First Nation in Manitoba. I am a 60 scoop survivor, and that means I was stolen from my family. I was stolen twice. The first time was from my birth mother. Um, I was placed in a non-indigenous homes. I'm not sure how many at the time because I was such a young little girl. um, but yeah, you'll have to forgive me. It's kind of new to me to be speaking on camera and um, yeah, sharing all of this so openly and willingly, willingly, excuse me. I never thought any of this was possible. I never thought I'd be able to be sitting here and in Vancouver, sober and smiling and being happy and free. So I'm learning and growing and experiencing new things. Yeah, just because I was stuck and lost for many, many years, being an active drug addiction or being in active drug addiction for 23 years. I I can see how I was unable to grow and learn because of that. So I wanted to jump on here and share my experiences and my journey to help and inspire change, maybe bring comfort to someone's life that's having or going through similar experiences as I did, being, a drug addict, addicted, a sex worker, a child in care, a person being a child that's been stolen and from their family, and losing all of those connections. Yeah. So my name is Victoria Flatt, like I said, and I was born to Carol Grace Swatsky, or Carol Grace Flatt, her maiden name. She's a beautiful lady. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to meet her and have a relationship with my birth mother. I mean, it was short. It was 11 years that I got to know her before she passed on and went to do her angel work. And yeah, but she was an intravenous drug user. Um, you know, addiction runs in our family. My great grandmother, or not my great grandmother, my grandmother was, in addiction as well and died at a very young age. And my mom, she passed away at 44 in 2007 when I was 22. And I got to meet her when I was 11 years old after being stolen from my family a second time. My birth father, my birth father's mother, Eva Mason, she stepped up to the plate and took us in. She became my legal guardian, foster parent. I was a permanent ward of Child and Family Services since birth. My mother was red flagged, so all of her children were taken at birth and placed into different homes. We were all separated. My grandmother eventually did obtain my sister and myself and was able to care for us and give us a loving home for 10 years of our lives, the beginning of our lives, right? And I'm not saying it was the best home. My grandmother had addictions, being she struggled with her own traumas and her own demons herself, being a residential school survivor. She shared some horrific stories about that, and I couldn't imagine all of that. So, I mean, I went through some pretty horrific things too, but that's like I could not imagine. So, yeah. Um, so at 10 years old, I was taken from my grandmother, Eva Mason, and I was taken from school in the middle of the afternoon while my grandmother was at dialysis. And my sister and I were actually taken, both of us, because my grandmother had both of us at the time. And yeah, these workers came into our classroom and took us. They said that we had to go with them, and we had to we had to leave with them. So we went with them, and we were put on the next flight to Winnipeg, Manitoba. We were living in Norway House, Manitoba, which is where my grandmother was from, and yeah, so they took us on the flight, and we landed in Winnipeg, and then my sister and I, we were then separated. Uh, we were then separated and placed into separate homes we where that connection was stolen from us. I mean, we grew up together, and my sister and I, our relationship has struggled, and we don't even have a relationship at this moment because of that. So I see how residential schools and all of that has affected myself and my family for generations, and how it still affects my family today. But thankfully, I was able to break that cycle and come out of that. Oops. My speaker just died, so sorry, I was jamming out to music earlier. Anyways, but yeah. So coming to Winnipeg at 10 years old, I was placed into a non-Indigenous home. It was a black family, and my sister was placed into her family, which was a white family, which she adapted to her family very well and her home very well. But I didn't. But I was already struggling with with things before being taken from my family. Like I had a horrible childhood as well, being different, being two-spirited, being gay, whatever you want to call it. I myself know that I am a trans woman. I am biologically a male, but I live and present my life as a female, and but that's because I was born with two spirits. I have a male spirit and a female spirit. So my female spirit is more dominant, so that's what presents itself and why I am Victoria. But yeah, so a lot of people made it hard for me to be myself and express myself because of who I was and being different and feminine. And I never knew that, like, I didn't wake up one day and say I'm gonna be a girl. I was born with two spirits. I was born this way. I was born, Creator gifted me these two spirits, and I understand why. I understand it all. I've come to understand it all through my spiritual journey that got me to here. So, yeah, I was picked on a lot in school. I was beat up almost every day during recess, after school. Excuse me, that stuff hurt me. It did. But, you know, it's those things that helped me and built strength to be who I am today. So I'm thankful for all of the experiences that I've had. I don't look at them as being I don't look at them as being horrible, horrific things anymore, because they're things that made me and built me and gave me the strength and resilience to pull through, to pull out of it. Anyways, getting off topic. But yeah, it was a struggle growing up. It definitely was, not knowing who I was inside and, you know, struggling with my gender identity. It was hard, and then having to be stolen from my family and all of those connections that I've had with, that side of the family, my dad's side of the family, and having all of those relationships stolen and broken, and not having any relationships with anybody. But I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful for every experience that I've had. I'm very thankful that I was stolen in some degree because it would have never brought me to my mom. I would have never been able to meet my mom. And my mother, my birth mom, is my best friend. She was my best friend. After after being stolen from my family at 10, by 11 years old, I was introduced to the sex trade, and then by 14, I was a full-blown drug addict. I was actively working the sex trade to feed my addiction. Um, and it was through the sex trade and my addiction that I got to meet my mom. I mean, and I'm so thankful for that. So, I mean, it depends how you look at situations, right? I mean, it could be bad or it could be good. And I try to see the good in everything, in every situation, because looking at all the bad just damages you more and takes time away from you, and and closes you in and makes you unable to grow and heal. So, yeah, I'm just thankful for a lot of things. um, so I remained a drug addict and high and working the sex trade for 23 years, both on the streets and indoors. I later went indoors and started working escort, and honestly, I really loved the life. I loved working. I loved it. I don't know. I don't know why, but the lifestyle really, even though I was homeless and had no fixed address or anywhere to live and call my own, but the drugs really helped a lot of that and numbed a lot of the traumas and all of the shit that I went through as a child being in care. Passed around to 27 foster homes and 5 group homes. You know, my social worker came to track one time when I was working on track on the street. She came to see me, but not to see how I was or for my well-being. She came to ask me questions about my sex work and how I came to work. Did I have more outfits than the one I was wearing that night and that sort of stuff? And while having a Canada-wide missing persons out on me as a missing child in care. So there was a lot of ways that the system failed me as a child in care. I mean, I don't understand why they'd rip me away from a home that I had all of it. I mean, my grandmother did the best she can, or the best she could. She provided us Christmas gifts every year. She, celebrated birthdays. I mean, we weren't rich by any means, but, she did the best she could. She loved us unconditionally. And yeah, she was old, because she was pretty old, but anyways, and she was on dialysis from her own addictions. She was an alcoholic, and yeah, so yeah, I love my granny too. She is very special to me. I have her picture right here. This was actually taken at a bus station, at the Winnipeg bus station. This is me. I don't know, I think I don't even know how old I was there. But this was at one of our monthly visits while I was in care. after being stolen from her. So I did have visits with her for a short while, but after being introduced to the streets and having the street life, I wasn't interested in having anyone's relationships or being in, talking to anyone, because I was already sucked into that lifestyle and wanted that lifestyle. And I found acceptance in that lifestyle, where I wasn't accepted in the mainstream world, being in school. And because being in school was, even high school, I was always feminine and looked feminine, had long hair, and people always thought I was a girl. I had a feminine voice at that time before I hit puberty, and my voice deepened a little bit, but I don't let that bother me. I am who I am, and I love me. But yeah, I don't know. There was one foster home that I actually enjoyed, and I stayed in for a year actually, before I went into my active drug addiction, and I enjoyed that. But there too, being a kid and wanting to experiment, I went out in the world and went AWOL from that foster home, and they gave up on me too and turned their back on me too. I mean, I wanted to go back after whatever I was doing, after whatever I did, right? And I was unable to. The foster mother said that I had to go back to school for a week to prove myself, to come back to that home if I really wanted to. But, after sitting in the safe house for children, for youth, I was sitting there and I was contemplating, I really wanted to go back. I really wanted to go back. But I don't want to go back to school because, that was, torture in itself, being treated so horribly, and, being called, horrible names, and, having to look over my shoulder every minute, and when I walk down the hallway, or, you know, so I decided to hit the streets and go all into the streets. I found drugs. I started using crack cocaine at 14, actively using drugs, like actively using crack to numb my pain and my traumas from all the sexual abuse that I've encountered in these homes that I was placed into, and all the traumas, the physical and mental abuse. My father wasn't as pleasant to me as well growing up. He knew I was different. He struggled with his own addictions as well. He lived a really horrible life, from the stories that I've heard from both my mother and my grandmother, and witnessing it myself. Excuse me. So I never had any kind of a relationship with my father, even though I lived with my dad's mom. But yeah, I don't know. I found the streets, and I was accepted on the streets. I could be me. Nobody gave a shit that I was wearing makeup. Nobody gave a shit that I was wearing a dress and high heels. You know, people wanted to be my friend and talk to me, and I I found acceptance, but in a way, I was I was hurting. I was hurting, and I was numbing it out. The drugs really helped me a lot, though. I mean, I don't, they say drugs are bad, and in a way they are, but drugs really helped me. They really helped me. They helped me survive. They helped me survive the 23 years. They helped me get through all of that because with the amount of pain and trauma that I was carrying at such a young age, I would have been dead a long time ago. One of the homes was they were trying to take me back to my my home community, Pegwith, and put me in a home there, and I wasn't having that. It was, it was like culture shock to me. I didn't know anybody, and that's where I tried my first suicide attempt. I think I was like 11 years old, 11-ish. And yeah, I ended up running away from that, crossing some fields and walking through creeks and having leeches on my legs and walking up the highway and trying to make my way back to Winnipeg as a child. And I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing, but I wanted to go home. I wanted to go to my grandmother. Like, why? I didn't understand why they would take me away from such a loving home, somebody that loved me and wanted me, because she did fight for us. She obtained a lawyer and tried to fight for us, but there was she had no match. There was no fighting, the government or the system, because we were permanent wards of Child and Family Services since we were born. So there was nothing that she could do to get us back. So yeah, that was my life. I lived on the streets, slept on the streets, hooked on the streets, smoked my drugs on the streets. Through winters and all of that, and I, lost count of how many times that I should have been dead. I've lost, it was just not a good thing. There was one time in particular that stands out, that really that really traumatized me. It was when this I was assaulted. I went on a call to this guy's house, and it was in the paper, and it made the paper, and then I went to this guy's house, and it was in his grandmother's house and in his basement, and I don't know, but this guy brutally assaulted me. He kept me in his basement, and he beat me so bad. I was black and blue. I mean, I don't know. He was trying to drag me into this back room where there was this concrete hole cut out in the floor with, shovels and plastic wrap and rope and all of that in there. And I knew if I went in there that I wasn't coming out of there. So I fought my way out of that one. I don't know how, but I got out of there, thankfully. But yeah, working the streets, it was rough. Working escort was a lot safer because I was able to have numbers and keep track of all of that. So but yeah, I worked escort for about 10 years. I eventually got an apartment, for my very own apartment for the first time. I was still actively using, which was awesome. But to go back to my mom, I met my mom through the sex trade. I was working track one day or one evening, and my mom was working track beside me too. And I didn't know that she was my mom. We didn't know anything about that. And my auntie actually came along and said, "Do you guys know who you are?" And we're like, no. And she's like, that's your kid. And we like, whoa, holy shit. It was, yeah, it was love at first sight. I knew instantly she was my mom, and I loved her immediately. There was, yeah, um, having my own addiction and understanding all of that. I understand how and why my mom did what she did, and why she never wanted to. She always said that I'm never gonna get sober for anybody, for nobody, not even you. And I was like, what? I was so confused by it. But I understand, because I later in life, after my mom passed away and I lost her and she succumbed to her addiction. I mean, because of her addiction, she didn't die from her addiction, but you could say she did die from her addiction with because she was an intravenous drug user. She was unable to live through the surgery to repair the holes in her lungs that black mold had caused, and she already had chronic asthma on top of that. So she had a 0% chance of living through the surgery. And the doctor basically told her just to get comfortable and wait to die. And she died May 5th, 2007. I think that's when I kind of gave up on life, just because we had a really good connection. We had a strong bond. We we understood each other, but I just carried on with my addiction, and I never wanted to get sober ever. I never wanted to be sober. I wanted to go out so high and be high and never feel feelings ever again. And I did that. I accomplished that for many years, and I swear I thought that I was going to go out high, that I was going to die high and nobody would care, or not that I cared even about myself anyways. So, but I lived, I made it. Thank goodness. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, I made it to able to get a home of my own while being high and all of this. I got into this program, and they helped me get into a house, into an apartment of my own. It was, yeah, they were supposed to help me and assist me in living and all of this, but they totally just housed me and forgot all about me and never followed through with anything except paid my rent and gave me a home to use my drugs in, which did a lot more damage to me, to myself, because then not only did it isolate me, but it made me more lonely and not able to talk to people. I mean, there would be days where or weeks that I would not even talk to people. Just my dates, my clients, and my drug dealer would be the only people that I would have communication with. Because my clients would come to my house, and my drug dealer would come to my house. So there was no reason for me to leave my home after getting a home. And it damaged me more to because I was so isolated and I wouldn't talk to people. At least when I was homeless and not had a home. I was using drugs in the world and being around people and still able to talk to people and I don't know, hang out, be around people just to know they were there, right? But getting into this apartment, it it made things more complicated for me. You know, I hated waking up in the morning when I did wake, like when I did go to sleep, when I was able to get to sleep because I would stay up for like 7 days at a time and use drugs the whole time and just constantly do call after call after call and support my drug addiction and others. You know, I had a partner in crime. Eventually, there was this friend that came into my life, and I thought we were best friends, and she was, you know, my bro. I thought we were, you know, through thick and thin. She had my back, I had her back. And it was that friend that that gave me an eye-opening experience, that delivered me the truth, that opened my eyes to be able to see the truth for what it was. And that experience is what opened my eyes to be able to get sober, to give me the strength to get sober, because I knew that if I didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. And I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was looking for love through her, thinking she loved me, but it wasn't about that. It was about how high she can get and how much drugs she can get out of me. So, yeah, and I thank her for that experience, for being that way to me on my birthday. Yet, you know, that experience changed my life. That eye-opening experience gave me the strength to want to experience more in life, to grow, to heal. It opened up it opened up a door to many possibilities and opportunities. I mean, so I thank her for all of that. I do. And I love her so much. And I hope she's doing great, and I send her love. But this eye-opening experience, it led to my spiritual awakening that gave me the strength to get to this point. I went to ceremony. I've been a spiritual person my whole life. Well, somewhat spiritual. I mean, I always believed in a higher power, God, creator. You know, I was a little bit confused in which direction to go. Being in First Nations, Indigenous person myself, I was, you know, like, I didn't know what to believe. But I went to this ceremony out on the land. The drum was calling me, the traditional drum, and it was calling me. So I went and joined this drum group that I've been a part of for many years, off and on, throughout my addiction. Whenever I could, whenever I had a day to spare or whatever, I would go and drum. And yeah, they opened their arms up and accepted me into their group and went to ceremony. I drummed for the first international moon dance ceremony in Canada's history, run by women elders out on the land, in, I forget where it is. It's on Lake Winnipeg, anyways, in Manitoba. And I attended this ceremony, And it was a very powerful ceremony, to say the least. I did a lot of healing at this ceremony. I found myself at this ceremony. I connected with my spirit and creator at this ceremony. Um, yeah, I let go of a lot of my traumas and my pain at that ceremony. I kind of did my own ceremony out on the water, where I built this rock tower kind of thing, and I, you know, prayed to it. I screamed at it. I cried and let it all out to it, and explained all my pain and hurt to it. And yeah, I left there a different person. I left there wanting to grow and wanting to experience life in a different way. I left there with brand new eyes. I left there I left there connected to spirituality, but I never knew that I would grow to what I experience now, the knowledge that I know now through this spiritual awakening is unbelievable. I never knew that any of this was possible, but if you believe that it is possible and you give yourself the chance to believe that it is possible, you open up your mind, your heart, anything is possible in this world if you believe it is. So I don't limit myself to thinking anything. I try to push my way through things that I find challenging, because it's those challenges that are going to build resilience and strength. So I always like to be challenged in some way. So, yeah. To anyone watching this video, if you are struggling or, feeling a certain way or having whatever, I just want you to know that you are not alone. Life can be hard and difficult, it sure can be, but we have the choice, we have the ability to get through it. Just stay strong and hold yourself, keep yourself high, keep your eyes on the prize. Sending love, peace and love.